Drop one clove into your coffee tomorrow morning and start a timer. Within 10 minutes, something happens inside your body that most doctors can't explain because they've never once looked at what this spice does when it hits hot liquid. 71-year-old man, my patient. Knees aching for 8 years. Fingers so stiff every morning he couldn't grip his own mug. His grandmother in Turkey told him to put a clove in his coffee, not his rheumatologist who charged him $400 a visit and put him on pills that shredded his stomach. His grandmother. He called my office 3 hours later still shaking. Not from pain, from the absence of it. I ran his inflammatory markers that afternoon. CRP down, measurably, in hours, from one clove that cost 3 cents. Here's what nobody explains. Clove carries the highest eugenol concentration of any edible thing on Earth, 80 to 90% of its oil. Eugenol blocks both COX-1 and COX-2, the same pathway ibuprofen uses, without tearing your stomach lining apart or wrecking your kidneys. And when it dissolves in hot coffee, the absorption accelerates so fast it's in your bloodstream before you set the cup down. But pain is only the first of 6 changes. Each one hits at a different point in those first minutes, and some of them you'll feel before you finish drinking. Now, number 2 on this list hits the fastest of all 6, and most people feel it in under 5 minutes. Every study is waiting for you in the description. Before we start, tell me one thing below. What's your age, and how many cups of coffee do you drink a day? I read every comment myself, and I write back. Now, let's start with change number 6, the first thing that happens after your clove hits the coffee, and you'll notice it before your second sip. Number 6, it kills 70% of mouth bacteria within minutes. Most people reach for gum or mouthwash when they want fresh breath, but they have no idea that a single clove dropped into their coffee destroys oral bacteria at a rate that rivals commercial antiseptics. Bad breath isn't just about leftover food particles. It's caused by specific bacteria that produce volatile sulfur compounds in your mouth. A study published in the Journal of Dentistry tested clove extract against 5 of the most destructive oral bacterial strains, including Streptococcus mutans, which is the primary bacteria responsible for tooth decay, and Porphyromonas gingivalis, which is the leading cause of gum disease. The results were striking. Eugenol, the main active compound in cloves, destroyed bacterial cell membranes on contact with an effectiveness rate of 70%, matching and in some tests outperforming the leading commercial mouthwash brands. The Indian Journal of Dental Research ran a separate comparison study where they tested clove oil head to head against chlorhexidine, which is the gold standard prescription mouthwash. Clove oil reduced total bacterial colony counts by 70% compared to chlorhexidine's 72%. That's a 2% difference for something that costs a fraction of a penny versus a prescription product. But it goes even further. A study in Compendium of Continuing Education in Dentistry found that eugenol reduced plaque formation by 56% over a 21-day period in participants who used clove-based oral rinses. The reason is that eugenol doesn't just kill existing bacteria. It disrupts the biofilm matrix, which is the sticky protective layer that bacteria build on your teeth and gums to shield themselves from your immune system and from toothpaste. When you add a clove to hot coffee, the brewing temperature between 90 and 96 degrees Celsius is the perfect range for extracting eugenol. The heat breaks open the clove's cellular structure and pulls out 85% of available eugenol within the first 5 minutes, according to a study in food chemistry. For the best results, lightly crush the clove with the back of a spoon before dropping it in. This cracks open the surface and increases the extraction surface area by approximately 40%. Let it steep for at least 4 minutes. As you sip, the eugenol coats every surface in your mouth, your teeth, your gums, your tongue, creating an antibacterial environment that lasts for up to 90 minutes after your last sip, according to oral pharmacology research. Some people even chew the softened clove afterward. Dentists in Southeast Asian countries have recommended this for centuries because eugenol also acts as a natural analgesic that numbs pain receptors, which is exactly why 85% of dental emergency kits contain synthetic eugenol as a pain reliever. But killing mouth bacteria is just the surface. The next change goes much deeper into your brain. Number 5, it reduces brain oxidative stress by 38%. Coffee already gives you a caffeine boost, but adding a clove triggers a completely different mechanism in your brain that caffeine alone cannot touch. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors, which is what makes you feel less tired, but it does nothing to protect your brain cells from oxidative damage, which is the primary driver of brain fog, poor concentration, and long-term cognitive decline. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food measured eugenol's effect on neural tissue and found that it reduced oxidative stress in brain cells by exactly 38% compared to control groups. That 38% reduction means significantly fewer free radicals attacking the membranes of your neurons, which translates directly into clearer thinking and faster mental processing. But the cognitive benefits don't stop at protection. Researchers at the Pharmaceutical Biology Journal conducted a controlled trial in 2014 and found that participants consuming eugenol-rich compounds scored 22% higher on memory recall tests and showed measurably faster reaction times in cognitive performance assessments. The mechanism behind this is that eugenol enhances acetylcholine activity. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter directly responsible for learning, focus, attention, and memory formation. It's the exact neurotransmitter that drops by 60 to 90% in Alzheimer's patients, according to research in the Journal of Neurochemistry. So anything that supports acetylcholine function is protecting your cognitive future in a measurable way. What makes the coffee and clove combination uniquely effective is the timing of their compounds. Caffeine enters your bloodstream within 10 minutes and peaks at 45 minutes. Eugenol from a steeped clove reaches effective concentration in your cup within 8 to 10 minutes of steeping. When you consume them together, you get caffeine's alertness layered with eugenol's neuroprotection hitting your brain almost simultaneously. A study in the International Journal of Food Science found that whole cloves retained 89% of their eugenol content after 6 months of storage, while pre-ground clove powder lost nearly 50% in the same period. This means using whole cloves is not just a preference, it's a measurable difference of 39 percentage points in potency. Always use whole cloves, lightly crushed, and steep for the full duration of your drinking time. Researchers also found that eugenol's half-life in the body is approximately 14 hours, which means one morning cup provides neuroprotective activity that extends well past lunch and into the afternoon. Your brain isn't just getting a temporary boost. It's getting sustained cellular protection that lasts most of your waking day and shields neurons from the 10,000 free radical attacks each brain cell faces daily. Now that your brain is protected, wait until you hear what this clove is doing to your entire digestive system. Number 4, it increases digestive enzyme production by 24%. Here's something that millions of coffee drinkers deal with every single morning but rarely talk about. Coffee on its own increases gastric acid secretion by up to 30% according to research in Gastroenterology Journal. And for roughly 40% of regular coffee drinkers, that leads to bloating, acid reflux, or that uncomfortable churning sensation after their first cup. Adding a clove to your coffee directly counteracts this problem through a mechanism that researchers have now quantified precisely. A study published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology measured digestive enzyme output in participants consuming eugenol-rich compounds and found a 24% increase in the production of 3 critical digestive enzymes. Amylase, which breaks down carbohydrates, increased by 24%. Lipase, which processes fats, showed comparable elevation. Protease, which handles protein digestion, rose by a similar margin. That 24% increase means your body becomes measurably more efficient at processing everything you eat throughout the entire day, and it starts working from your very first cup. But the stomach protection story is even more impressive. Researchers at the Phytotherapy Research journal tested a compound in cloves called acetyl eugenol and found that it reduced stomach ulcer formation by a staggering 97.5% in controlled studies. The mechanism is that acetyl eugenol stimulates your stomach to produce more gastric mucus, which is the protective coating that shields your stomach lining from acid damage. The study measured a 59% increase in gastric mucus production in the groups receiving clove compounds. So while your coffee is ramping up acid secretion by 30%, the clove is simultaneously boosting your stomach's protective mucus barrier by 59%. The math works powerfully in your favor. For people who experience acid reflux from coffee, this is a genuine game changer. A clinical trial published in the Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine journal took this even further by testing cloves combined with cardamom and found that the combination reduced reported bloating episodes by 36% and decreased gastric discomfort scores by 42% over an 8-week period. The preparation method is straightforward. Drop 1 whole clove into your coffee right after brewing and let it steep for at least 5 minutes. If you use a French press, add the clove with the grounds before pressing. The contact time with hot water matters because a study in food science and technology found that eugenol extraction increased by 60% when steeping time went from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. Some traditional Ayurvedic practitioners also recommend adding 1 crushed cardamom pod alongside the clove for the synergistic digestive benefits that the clinical trial confirmed. Your stomach gets protected, your enzyme output goes up by nearly a quarter, and you absorb more nutrients from every meal you eat afterward. And if those digestive numbers impressed you, the next change involves your body's entire immune defense system. Number 3, it increases natural killer cell activity by 45%. Most people associate immune support with vitamin C and zinc, but what cloves do to your immune system is on a completely different level that most people have never heard about. Your body has specialized cells called natural killer cells, and their job is to find and destroy virus-infected cells and abnormal cells before they can multiply and spread. They are your immune system's first responders, and their activity level directly determines how fast your body can shut down an infection. A comprehensive review published in the Journal of Immunology Research analyzed 17 separate studies on eugenol and immune function. The finding that stood out most was that eugenol-consuming subjects showed a 45% increase in natural killer cell activity over a 30-day period. That is a 45% improvement in your body's ability to identify and eliminate threats before they become full-blown infections. To put that in context, moderate regular exercise, which is widely praised for immune benefits, increases natural killer cell activity by approximately 25 to 30%, according to the Journal of Sport and Health Science. 1 clove per day exceeded that by a significant margin, but the immune modulation goes beyond just boosting killer cells. Researchers at the Immunopharmacology and Immunotoxicology Journal measured eugenol's effect on cytokines, which are the signaling molecules that coordinate your entire immune response. They found that eugenol increased anti-inflammatory cytokines by 29% while simultaneously reducing pro-inflammatory cytokines by 34%. That dual action is critical because it means your immune system becomes both stronger and more precise. It fights harder against real threats while pulling back on the excessive inflammatory responses that cause autoimmune problems and allergic reactions. A separate study in the International Immunopharmacology Journal tested eugenol against common respiratory pathogens and found that it inhibited viral replication by 68% in cell culture studies. The researchers specifically noted that eugenol disrupted the viral attachment process, which is the step where a virus latches onto your healthy cells before injecting its genetic material. By blocking attachment, the virus literally cannot begin the infection process. When you drink clove-infused coffee, the eugenol makes direct contact with the mucous membranes in your throat and upper respiratory tract as you swallow, providing a first line of defense right at the entry point where most airborne infections begin. For maximum immune benefits, consistency is what the research supports most strongly. 1 clove per cup once daily is the baseline effective dose used across the majority of studies. If you feel a cold coming on, some herbalists recommend increasing to 2 cloves per cup for up to 5 days. But don't exceed that long term because eugenol above 2.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight daily can irritate mucous membranes, according to the European Food Safety Authority. 1 clove contains roughly 1 to 2 milligrams of eugenol, so a single clove daily keeps you safely within the effective therapeutic range while giving your immune system a 45% activity boost. But immune boosting is one thing. What comes next affects virtually every chronic disease on the planet. Number 2, it reduces the key inflammation marker CRP by 31%. Chronic inflammation is what researchers now call the silent killer, and the numbers behind it are terrifying. The World Health Organization ranks chronic inflammatory diseases as the #1 threat to human health worldwide, with 3 out of 5 people globally dying from inflammation-related conditions, including heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Most people are walking around with dangerously elevated inflammation levels, and they have absolutely no idea because it doesn't cause obvious symptoms until serious organ damage is already underway. This is where cloves in your coffee become genuinely life-changing. A landmark study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food tested eugenol's effect on the COX-2 enzyme, which is the primary enzyme responsible for producing inflammatory compounds in your body. Eugenol inhibited COX-2 activity by 40%. Now that exact mechanism, COX-2 inhibition, is the same one used by ibuprofen, aspirin, and the prescription drug celecoxib. The critical difference is that long-term NSAID use causes gastrointestinal bleeding in 1 to 2% of users annually, according to the American Journal of Gastroenterology, and increases kidney damage risk by 32%, according to B&J. Eugenol provides comparable COX-2 inhibition without those documented side effects at normal dietary doses. A 2018 study in the Inflammation Journal delivered even more precise results. Researchers measured C-reactive protein levels, which is the gold standard blood marker that doctors use to assess systemic inflammation in participants consuming eugenol compounds daily. After 6 weeks, CRP levels dropped by 31%. That 31% reduction is clinically significant because cardiologists consider CRP levels above 3 milligrams per liter to be a serious cardiovascular risk factor, and reducing CRP by even 15 to 20% is associated with a meaningful reduction in heart attack and stroke risk. A 31% drop puts many borderline patients back into the safe range. The coffee and clove pairing creates what researchers describe as a synergistic anti-inflammatory effect. Coffee alone, thanks to its chlorogenic acids, reduces inflammatory markers by 8 to 12%, according to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Eugenol adds its 40% COX-2 inhibition on top of that. A study in the European Journal of Pharmacology also found that eugenol suppressed NF-κB activation by 63%. NF-κB is the master inflammatory switch inside your cells that controls the expression of over 500 pro-inflammatory genes. Suppressing it by 63% essentially turns down the volume on your body's entire inflammatory response at the genetic level. For maximum anti-inflammatory benefits, temperature and steeping time are critical. Food chemistry research showed that eugenol extraction rates increased by 60% when water temperature went from 70 to 95 degrees Celsius. Always steep your clove in the hottest coffee possible for a minimum of 5 full minutes before adding cold milk or ice. That timing difference alone determines whether you're getting 40% of the available eugenol or the full effective dose. This one habit alone addresses what kills 3 out of every 5 people on the planet. Now, everything we've covered so far is important, but this final change targets the single biggest metabolic epidemic in human history. Number 1, it improves insulin sensitivity by 23% in 4 weeks. This is the one I've been waiting to tell you about, and it's the reason I put it at number 1. According to the International Diabetes Federation, 537 million adults are currently living with diabetes worldwide, and another 541 million have prediabetes, meaning their blood sugar regulation is already failing but hasn't crossed the diagnostic threshold yet. That is over 1 billion people on this planet right now whose bodies cannot properly handle sugar. And what scientists discovered about cloves and blood sugar regulation is one of the most remarkable findings in recent nutritional research. A pivotal 2019 study published in the Journal of Traditional and Complementary Medicine divided participants into controlled groups and gave one group eugenol supplements alongside their normal diet with no other changes. After just 4 weeks, the eugenol group showed a 23% improvement in insulin sensitivity compared to the control group. Insulin sensitivity measures how effectively your cells respond to insulin and absorb glucose from your bloodstream. It is considered the single most important biomarker for predicting and preventing type 2 diabetes. A 23% improvement in 4 weeks from one compound is extraordinary, but the cellular mechanism behind this is what truly amazed researchers. A study in the Phytomedicine journal found that eugenol activates a specific enzyme called AMPK, which stands for adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. AMPK is often called the body's metabolic master switch. When AMPK activates, 3 critical things happen simultaneously. Your muscle cells increase glucose uptake from the bloodstream by 32%. Your liver reduces unnecessary glucose production by 28%, and your fat cells improve their insulin receptor sensitivity. The researchers found that eugenol activated AMPK at rates comparable to metformin, which is the most widely prescribed diabetes medication on Earth with over 150 million prescriptions annually. A natural compound activating the same pathway as the world's most prescribed diabetes drug is a finding that carries enormous implications. A separate study published in the British Journal of Nutrition tracked participants consuming small daily amounts of clove compounds and measured their glucose responses with continuous monitoring. Fasting blood glucose levels dropped by an average of 18% over 30 days. Post-meal glucose spikes, which are the sharp, dangerous surges in blood sugar that happen within 60 to 90 minutes after eating, were reduced by 27%. Additionally, HbA1c levels, which measure your average blood sugar over the previous 3 months, decreased by 12%. That 12% HbA1c reduction is particularly striking because the American Diabetes Association considers even a 5 to 7% reduction clinically meaningful. The coffee itself adds a second powerful mechanism. Research published in Diabetes Care found that chlorogenic acids in coffee slow glucose absorption in the small intestine by approximately 25%. So when you combine that 25% slowed absorption with eugenol's 23% improved insulin sensitivity and 32% increased cellular glucose uptake, you get a triple-layered defense against blood sugar dysregulation from a single cup. For maximum blood sugar benefits, timing is critical. Drink your clove coffee 15 to 20 minutes before your first meal so the compounds are present in your system before food glucose enters your bloodstream. Use 1 whole clove, lightly crushed, steeped for a minimum of 5 minutes. If you add sweetener, replace sugar with a 1/4 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon, which the Journal of Medicinal Food found independently improves insulin sensitivity by an additional 10%, amplifying what the clove is already doing. This single morning habit addresses what is statistically the largest metabolic health crisis in human history, affecting over 1 billion people, and it costs you less than a penny per day. And there you have it. 6 shocking instant changes that happen when you put just 1 clove in your coffee, from killing 70% of mouth bacteria to reducing brain oxidative stress by 38%, from boosting digestive enzyme output by 24% to increasing killer cell activity by 45%, from dropping your CRP inflammation marker by 31% to improving insulin sensitivity by 23% in just 4 weeks. 1 tiny clove. 1 cup of coffee. 6 measurable transformations backed by real published research. The best part is that it takes 5 seconds to add to your morning routine and costs virtually nothing. If this video brought you value today, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another video like this. Thanks so much for watching.